This is LEXL ORV, off-road vehicle is his name. And I've had a half VW, one of Scott Kassler's, one of Scott Kassler's half VWs on this aircraft for about 450 hours. It was a 45 horsepower at 3,600 RPM. I then changed to the Werner 3V, a three-cylinder radial. It's a 42 horsepower, and it develops its power at 2,500 RPM, so you can run a bigger prop and a lot more torque. A lot of high performance in both those engines. This engine that we're looking at on the airplane today is a Briggs & Stratton Vanguard 23 horsepower, a 627 cc engine. We've made some changes to it. We tried to keep everything as stock as possible. What we have done is added an Ace Aviation redrive. We're using a warp blade ground adjustable prop, a warp fiberglass composite prop. We're using Mikuni carburetors. We have the aluminum flywheel on it, and in terms of weight, it's lighter than the half VW. The airplane performs like a low horsepower engine. If I had a 30 horsepower VW engine on the front of this, it would perform about the same. As you can tell, we have a lot of trees around here, and I have no problems getting up to the top of the trees and continuing above. It seems to be flying good. The acceleration, you got to keep it at some fairly high RPMs. I'm seeing roughly 2,300 on the prop, and I'm seeing about 4,200 RPM at the most on the engine. And when I pull the engine back to say 3,800 RPM, it seems strange, but you're doing roughly 38 miles an hour. So the engine RPMs for my weight, and the XL is designed for a 275-pound pilot, and with my clothes and everything on, I'm up in that range. And if you weigh 180 pounds or 200 pounds, you get some pretty neat performance out of this little engine. The only thing we've done that's not standard is change the carburation, and we've changed to aluminum flywheel. That's to save weight, not for any other purpose. The redrive is a stock unit. It takes a few weeks for it to arrive at your door. But the exhaust pipes, these are 1.125" 035 on the straights, an 1.25" J bend that I found, cut in half, and quietens it down substantially. I've got cameras considered all over it, and with the intent of picking up not only what the engine's doing, but what the airplane's doing. Anyway, what we have, and I'll just kind of walk around the airplane here, but this is a fairly standard LEXL XL. I undersized a few tubes here and there, and I built it as light as possible. I used aluminum pins on the ailerons, and just a basic instrument panel. My instrument panel, I've got a stopwatch, and I consider that one of the more important gauges. A tachometer. Actually, in this case, I have two tachometers. I have a optical or a magnetic tachometer on the actual sheave, so I'm reading the prop RPM up here. This is a prop RPM. These two are engine RPM. That way I can determine if I'm getting any belt slippage and how accurate the props are. Oil temperature gauge, Now, this metal pan down here has about 600 hours on it, and over there on the front left it's starting to tear out. But for those of you that say, oh, that metal's not thick enough, well, that's 650 hours. How much you going to fly yours? Anyway, wings are all fabric covered wood. The tail surfaces are fabric covered aluminum, and tubing on the front and back, and shaped bent up ribs in between. And I have spacers. These spacers, you might notice we got quite a few out here and a few up here, but over on the other side, well, what happens, that is used for trim. And this is actually trimmed for the verner. On my other one I made, I actually offset the rudder a little ways. This airplane's been in a lot of different environments. I've had cameras everywhere, and I use spray can paint, and painting is not my best thing to do. I'm terrible at painting, and so to have any paint on it at all, I'm doing good. The ailerons here. And I put a little scoop on the oil cooler. Without that, I was getting a little bit warm on the oil. In the winter time, you may have to cover that off. Now, because my fuel tank is down here in the fuselage, and the carburetors are here, and the bottom of the fuel's here, I have to use the fuel pump. This is a fuel pump that comes with the Briggs & Stratton. Picks up its vacuum up here. And anyway, that's what we got here. Now I've got a that battery looks like a monster, but it only weighs 3 pounds 1 ounce. It's one of those Life Epo high-tech batteries, and that battery is only used for starting and to power my instruments, so it's a lot bigger than it needs to be, but it's not much weight. Anyway, that's where we're at. We're coming up on 10 hours total run time on the engine at this point in time. We were out flying this morning, and what we done is we actually made several trips down the runway and different takeoff configurations to see how it climbed and how it performed the best way to get the best takeoff. Anyway, that's what we've got going on here with LEXL ORV and the Briggs & Stratton Vanguard 23.